So a funny thing happened when I went to the market. I go to the market and I'm seeing with social distancing and physical distancing, all these things. I go to the market and I see that there's a line to get in the market. Okay. Now, the crazy thing was, as I'm sitting here and driving past this line, I felt this sense of fear all up in my belly. I parked for a moment. I started panicking. I was like, oh my gosh, do I have food? For moments, I was in this state of despair, like scarcity. And I recognized at that point, that's the power of planning. You see, planning, I realized in that moment, planning helped me relieve scarcity. It also helped me be thinking, thoughtful, rather than fear and running. What the heck do I mean by this? So planning allows, like, I think this is coming from like some of the stuff I'm working on, like about brain works and language and things of this nature, how our amygdala works, which is the part of the brain that regulates the fight or the flight response, how the prefrontal cortex, the big part of our brain, how that's like the thoughtful center, the space that makes the decisions. And when I recognized in that moment, like I was operating from the amygdala, the fight or flight, like the freeze, like, oh my gosh, like this is not enough. I'm scared. I'm frightened. And when I parked and I took some breaths and I got to settle back in, that got me more prefrontal cortex. Like, hold up, man, I got food for days. I'm good. I'll come back at a time when it's better for me to get in and out. Cool. Now, this brings me, why I bring this up is this brought me to something that in a past Men Talk About podcast with Chris Flores, we were talking about work-life balance. And Chris brought up the daily planner, right? The daily planner. This was at this is philosophy or flow fitness. So I was like, oh, junk. So now I recognize for myself, how I do one thing is how I do everything. So for me, I recognize, like, man, I get to plan more. And that planning also, it presents itself in different areas of my life. Like how I'm planning my food intake, my rations, right? And this comes in handy in all different times, in times of abundance and in times of uncertainty. Being present and planning with my rations, being present and planning with my time, being present and planning with my resources. So I bring this to you on this channel because check back in on that work-life balance and like how, and the question here, the invitation is to look at what is your plan? Like, what's your plan? Operating from a plan helps to create distinctions, which also supports discernment. Okay? Why is that important, Paul? Well, I'm glad that you asked, damn it. Yes. Okay? I'm glad that you asked. It's important because as you go through times of uncertainty, it's you being able to think through a process rather than react to or through a process will help you to manage your resources. That includes your own internal energy. It helps you manage your resources more effectively. When you have a plan, when you have an end in mind, or you have a design or a structure, it will give and provide the ability for you to be able to deviate a little bit from the plan, knowing that you have the structure to fall back on, knowing that you have the structure to dive into. And that's the purpose of a plan. So I see it. I'm telling you, I'm talking about this for myself, okay? And I'm also speaking it because they just, like, as I'm going through this, I'm like, look, I'm listening to that podcast again. So the invitation, you're listening, you're on this channel, you're listening. Tap into what's your plan in everything that you do. In this time, there's always a time for people to go inside and reflect. So think about this in different areas of your life. What's your plan? And if you have yet to create one, hey, well, guess what? Now is the perfect opportunity. That was the perfect opportunity to do it. Hook it up. Take care of it. Handle it. Do your thing. Plan, because there is a power in the plan. And when you start, when I can tap into what my plan is in different areas of my life, I have something that I can stick to. There's something that helps me to create a structure for discernment, and I get to manage my resources, all my resources, effectively, so I can accomplish my plan and I can get to whatever outcome, or just enjoy the ride of life, because it's always uncertain and it's always changing. So this is Paul, New Wellness Guide, and your Men Talk About host. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace.